Another Super Bowl is in the books, and it's the LA Rams that are going to Disneyland. But how did that whole I'm going to Disneyland, I'm going to Disney World thing get started? We've got the story for you. This story comes to us from Jack Lindquist, who is the longtime president of Disneyland, who has now since passed away. But he was a marketing genius. He's in the Theme Park Hall of Fame. Absolutely wonderful man to sit down and talk with. And he has this great story about the origin of the whole I'm going to Disneyland campaign. This actually starts back in late 1986. And if you remember or you study trivia, there was this airplane called the Voyager that had made the first ever around the world trip for an aircraft without stopping to refuel. Really big deal at the time. So Michael Eisner, who was then the head of the Walt Disney Company, was hosting the pilots of the Voyager, Dick Rutan and Jenna Yeager. They're at the Plaza Inn at Disneyland, of all places. So Michael Eisner's there with his wife, Jane. And Jane asked Jenna Yeager, I mean, you just went on this fabulous trip all the way around the world. What are you going to do now? And Jenna Yeager supposedly turned to Jane Eisner and said, well, I guess we're going to Disneyland. And Jane turned to Michael and said, that's a great line. You should remember that. So apparently right after that dinner, Michael Eisner goes up to Jack Lindquist and says, we've got to use this line. I'm going to Disneyland. What can we use that for? Jack suggested, the Super Bowl's coming up in a few weeks. It's going to be, here in Southern California at the Rose Bowl. Why don't we, see if we can get, the most valuable player or someone to say that at the end of the game. And so they figured that the most valuable player is most likely to be one of the quarterbacks. So they went to the two quarterbacks who were going to be playing in the game, John Elway from the Denver Broncos and Phil Simms of the New York Giants. And they signed them up to contracts to say, I'm going to Disneyland at the end of the game should their team win. And they cut that into a commercial that would get on all the morning news shows the next morning.
What are you doing next? I'm going to go to Disney World.
And it's a huge, huge hit. And in fact, this really becomes, one of the first viral memes even before the internet. Certainly before the World Wide Web. The internet was just, a little academic network back then. But yeah, so whenever anybody would make a big shot in a playground hoops game or something, it was always, I'm going to Disneyland or I'm going to Disney World. And they ended up taking this to the World Series. They took it to the Indy 500. They took it to pretty much every major sporting event they could to get the winner to say, I'm going to Disneyland, and also eventually, I'm going to Disney World, so that they would have these commercials that they could run, and it became a huge, huge promotional hit for the Walt Disney Company. Like I said, this went viral in the age before the internet. Everyone was talking about, going to Disneyland or going to Disney World. That was the sign that you'd made it. That was the sign that you won. That was the sign that you were a champion. I think really more than just about anything else, this is what cemented Disney as the aspirational theme park trip. I mean, you're not going to Six Flags, you're not going to Cedar Point, you're not going to Universal, you're going to Disney World because you're a winner right then. So anyway, it was great hearing this story directly from Jack Lindquist talking about the origins of this. The blog post is up on Theme Park Insider. It's how the I'm going to Disney World Super Bowl ad got started. We've got it linked from our story on the front page today about the LA Rams winning the Super Bowl. So go take a look at that and get the whole story. It links back to our full interview that we did like 10 some years ago with Jack Lindquist, and there's so many great stories in that. I hope you go check that out. Jack, in addition to the I'm going to Disneyland campaign, this was the guy who came up with the idea of Disney Dollars, if you remember that, and the 35th anniversary Dream Machine, where they were giving away cars and all these big, big promotions that really helped cement Disneyland as the place to be in Southern California for the generation after Walt passed. All that was Jack Lindquist. So, a great theme park legend and a hell of a story. So congratulations to the Rams and their fans. And hey, congratulations to the Bengals and their fans too, because that was a heck of a season. I mean, it'd been a long, long time since they'd won anything in the playoffs, and they got to go to the Super Bowl this year. And, they were just literally, a few seconds and a few refs calls away from maybe getting that title in and bringing it back to Cincinnati. But, Rams pulled it out. Another championship for Los Angeles and another great milestone in the history of I'm going to Disneyland.